Welcome everybody to Mija Bradford's presentation, Decolonizing Mental Health, a journey of understanding. I've been really looking forward to this presentation, and I'm going to be very good. I'm just going to read a quick bio for Mija. Mija Bradford is a clinical therapist working in private practice since she graduated from Northwestern University MA counseling program in 2021. She has her MBA, and before her studies in counseling, retired after 27-year career in the financial industry. At 6, Mija was introduced to the subter energies in life and answered the healer's calling. As she grew, she realized that her gifts could be misunderstood in this Western culture, so she learned to let them recede. Mrs. Bradford is a Haitian woman that comes from a lineage of African diaspora healers that have suffered from collective generational trauma. She has been the victim and has witnessed individuals that the counseling industry has misdiagnosed, mislabeled, and sustained through treatment plans and medication that do not take the client's ancestral cultural into perspective due to the lack of colonized views, theories practiced in the counseling field.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I was telling everyone earlier, bear with me. I'm nervous. It's my time to come out. So, bonsoir. Bonsoir. So now, a mind is that your breath. So most people would think I'm an African American woman, which is okay under normal circumstances. But when I'm going to seek some help for my psyche, it's imperative that the professional helper, the therapist, the psychiatrist, they understand who and what I am. And that's the whole basis of this conversation. I want to share my story, and I want to invite you to participate in this conversation of trying to include diversity into the mental health. We've made some strides. Now we have diversity inclusion, so much so that now we ask for pronouns. Like when you guys checked in, right? They asked about your pronoun. That was not common when I was growing up. I get so excited that I see they and them. I'm like, oh, I can include my people when I talk about myself. So this conversation is long overdue. It's time that we as professional helpers in the United States recognize that Western cultural biases in our conventional education supports an Eurocentric, colonized thinking towards indigenous spiritual healing, which affects treatment provided to our clients. From a numeric perspective, the Western culture is actually eccentric, right? It's kind of like everybody's really trying to find their roots. Everyone is trying to see something different, right? But when we talk about education about mental health, you don't see it that much. Our textbooks and our curricula in psychology, research finding is very implicit to psychology theories based on almost the entire assumption of a European American culture. These assumptions are usually so embedded that we as a society have become blind to them. The consequence of this unexamined assumption is creating institutionalized racism, supremacy, and religious intolerance. Today, I would like to share my journey, and I would like you to understand that this is just a perspective that I found my voice to say, but there's a lot of people who don't have the voice to even express this. So in an overview, I'm gonna kind of hit all these points, and hopefully we'll be able to talk a little bit more about what do you feel needs to be done. I'm gonna tell you how I was able to be helped, but everyone has a different way. So when we talk about the counseling program, we're talking about KCREP, and that's the Counseling for Accreditation of Counseling and Related Educational Programs. And the mission is to make sure that the program is preparing counselors and as was told in my bio, I just graduated. So that's why this is really fresh and really in my head. I know a lot of you have been in this program and in this field for years. So please bear with me. I just want to share that what I learned in school and how people are conducting everyday business with people, it needs to be a little bit expanded, okay? So when we talk about diversity, or when the program talks about diversity, it hits all these 13 points. And usually it's done in one class, in one diversity class. I'm happy to say, as I prepared for this presentation, I found out that KCREP has just updated their standards, and they're going to make sure that this is supposed to be pushed throughout the program, right? But if you look at these 13 items, these are all core beliefs of a person. This is how a person makes their identity, right? They're gonna associate themselves with one of these areas, right? And then when you look at 13, among others, there's just a vast area, right? But as of today, most of these items is talked about in one multicultural class. So I would like to tell you a secret, and then I would like to kind of tell you who I am. Yeah, you're laughing, but it wasn't laughing when I was younger. But can we hear it? No.
Oops, sorry.
You can put it on pause. And this is how I grew up. I saw our ancestors all the time when I was younger. And I learned early on to keep my mouth shut. I would feel things about people. I would sense where they were hurting. And being a child in America, that wasn't accepted. So I learned to quickly keep it to myself. So who am I? My name is Mija Joseph Pierre Bradford. I go by Mija, and that's the name that I was given to me by a healer, cute little woman. She was a shaman in Mexico, and she gave me that name because she was saying that I was the daughter of the water. And so I'm a first generation Black Haitian woman who has abilities to use senses that most people don't use on a regular basis. And I'm so glad that I'm here at this conference, because some of the words that I was going to use at first, I was scared that people may not understand, but it seems like all of you guys are going through an awakening process. So let's go here. So when we talk about our auras, right, just like your physical body has senses, your auras, your spiritual has senses too, right? So think about being awoken to be able to see things spiritually, smell things spiritually, feel things spiritually. That's your other body, so to speak, who has senses as well. And that's what I mean by saying that I have the abilities to sense things that most people don't. And I am a healer. But at a young age, I didn't know that. And I didn't know that throughout my journey. Probably like, I didn't declare that I was a healer probably until I was like in my 40s, you know? So, but I was able to do things and help people in different parts of their lives. Psychiatrists, they labeled me as, let me see if I get them all right, bipolar, schizophrenic, and DID, dissociative identity disorder. And at one point I was in the hospital, all my little characters came out. I call them characters. But we have been able to integrate, and we did not use IFS. That was such a joke. We use actual, and we'll talk about that, rituals. So I was so glad that that question came up in your presentation, and my sister from a different mother, she said with rituals, so that really helps a lot. So I grew up living the American dream, most people come to the United States for a better life. In exchange for a better life, cultural assimilation occurs. Conformity reigns and supremacy here. I always had some spiritual things happening to me when I was younger, but I just knew, just keep it to myself. The majority of the time, I wouldn't share the information because I didn't want to look weird and I didn't want to stand out. So as a first generation, like most people who are first generation, they struggle to fit in with their peers, to find a mark, or try to even conform and still hold on to their heritage. Until one day I was in high school, and I don't know if I can take this. Okay, you guys can hear me, right? Walk around, I want to walk around. One day I was in high school. No, you need the mic? Okay.
Yeah, it's about online people.
I don't think we have anybody online.
No.
We don't have any.
Oh, okay.
So one day in high school, I was walking down the hallway and I'm just talking to a friend, and someone says, "Mary Jo, who the fuck you talking to?" And I looked around and I'm like, oh, shit. I noticed that certain people, I could see kind of through them, and other people were physical, like all of us. And I broke. I just lost it because I felt exposed, and I didn't know how to explain why I was talking to somebody that nobody else saw. So I was in the hospital. I'm from Chicago, so it was Lakeview Hospital. I was there for 4 weeks, and it was terrible. So I was so drugged, and all the treatments were basically to prove that I was lying or that I wasn't telling the truth. That was the treatment plan. They never considered anything about my culture. They didn't consider anything. And I was there for 4 weeks. Finally, my father said, enough is enough. Okay. And because we are from a society that is very colonized, my parents weren't doing anything wrong or putting me in jeopardy. They were thinking Western way is the right way, like so many cultures believe. I wonder if I had a psychiatrist like R.D. Laing, who stated psychiatric hospitals weren't established to cure patients, but to keep them quiet. He regarded schizophrenia as a normal psychological adjustment to dysfunctional society context. That would have been wonderful if I had someone like that at that age. Or Dr. Meloda Patrice Simone, who understood that, like many communities in Africa, viewed that when a person had a mental illness was actually a birth of a healer. And unfortunately, I didn't have that. So I promised myself that I was never gonna let anyone know about my gifts. What I didn't know at the time, that I was actually creating a schema of some sort to protect myself in this not safe world for people like me at the time. I was raised as a Catholic, and I became a devout Christian. I even worked at a mega church. I was the assistant pastor. I was the assistant to the second pastor. I knew the Bible backwards and forward. I was so hungry for the word, and I was trying to understand my spiritual aspect, my spiritual identity. So much so that I even studied under a Tao and learned Judaism, Kabbalah, and other religions to really understand the spiritual gift, to try to understand where did I fit in. The more I studied, the more I would try to study under people one-on-one, and I would let my guard down, and my gifts would kind of slip through. And I would find myself being vilified and eventually ostracized by the religious organization. Because my gifts I had and the understanding that I had about spirit didn't fit many of the doctrines. even though most of the doctrines that were written by people who were considered schizophrenic at the time, right? They were crazy. I mean, think about it. Jesus actually went into the temple, flipped to the scripture, read it, and he said, on this day, this scripture has come to pass. Could you imagine what people thinking of him? Well, we already know. That's why they crucified, right? There's all these people who are saying that it can only be one thing and not exploring other opportunities, right? At this point, I was well established in understanding that I had to protect myself. Even though that I was studying under all of these different religions and these people who I regarded very highly. They've written many books, and I was blessed to get to know them one-on-one. I was working in the financial industry. I can't even say anything more about that. And I was faithful to my job. I was really good. I was well liked. I received promotions, awards, many bonuses, and I felt comfortable financially, felt comfortable where I was at. But I had a strong desire to help people, so much so that I felt I was slipping into depression because I wasn't really helping anyone. I was just kind of seeking myself, just helping myself, helping my family. So the nagging and pulled had me open up a spiritual coaching business that I did on the side. And I had clients who would come to me who were church hurt, other people who were going through a spiritual awakening process or ascension process, or what professional helpers would call psychosis. People would seek me out. I really didn't advertise. It would start with a conversation. Somebody would tell someone that they heard from me. I even had a radio show. Some people call me for the radio show. That was interesting. I really like that. You can find it in iHeartRadio. It's called Attracting Your Life. And I interviewed so many people from different backgrounds. Side note, I even interviewed this guy who was, I forgot what they call him, a wizard. He was a wizard. He was a wizard. And he was talking about all these things, and he said something, and I said, oh, my Christian people, he's talking about Solomon in the Bible. He said, no, I'm not. I said, oh, no, yeah, you are. And he didn't even realize that some of the magic that he was talking about was from things in the Bible. I mean, people are so disassociated with things, you know, and don't see how it's all connected. I would allow my gifts to peer through to help people. I would do spiritual retreats, sound bowl healing, somatic healing, and then I would do Akashic Reiki, which is basically a nice way of saying that I'll let your higher self, your ancestors, your loved ones to come through while we did Reiki. Then one day, my supervisor, and I was working at a regulatory agency at this time, a government regulatory agency, got wind of my articles, and I was writing full moon articles and doing full moon rituals, because rituals is a nice way to kind of really help you balance things off. And she started to basically question my Christianity beliefs, even though it had nothing to do with my job. So much so it went on that I had another psychotic break, and then I had to go to the hospital. I was in shock when they pulled me into Rush Hospital. So much so when they gave me the diagnosis of anxiety, I was like, anxiety? I don't have time for anxiety. What are you talking about? And then they went further and they were like, well, I was so like out of it. I started sharing like what I was seeing, what I was thinking. And they're like, oh no, you're more than just having anxiety. Yeah. You're a psychotic. And it went on and on. I had these type of symptoms. I always heard voices, but now my voices were fighting each other. It was like a younger version of myself was saying, please don't help people. Kept arguing with them. Don't help people. People are evil. You know, these people, these humans, they don't want help. Don't help them. And this went on for a while. And I would have gaps in my memory because I didn't feel safe. I couldn't even drive my son to school. It was starting to get so bad that I remember one time I heard my son saying to my husband, I don't like being mommy. So I was starting to have different, at the time I would say identities, but Now I really understand they were just parts of myself who are here to help. And as healers who are having psychotic episodes, most of the time it's because they don't know how to integrate these energies and they don't have anyone to turn to. So I was having a spiritual crisis, a metamorphosis, a rebirth. I had multiple energies trying to come through me all at the same time due to a traumatic unrest of continually being rejected. I love how psychologist Mal Patrice Simon explains in his culture, the Delaware culture in Africa, where he's from, when a person has what the West would call a mental breakdown, it was viewed as good news from the spirit world. The person is going through a crisis has been chosen as a medium for a message for the community from the spirit realm. These mental disturbance results when people do not have the assistance to develop their helping ability needs and have no community to share their information with. I just want you guys to think about that the next time you are dealing with somebody with mental illness. They just are looking for a community to share some of the information, and some of the energies maybe just too strong for them to come through. So this is my philosophy. This is the foundation of my being. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So this is how I operated. This is my philosophy. But when I was seeking care from professional helpers, they would only view me from the body and the mind. Once again, I found myself in the Western culture kind of stuck, having to take medicine, being over-medicated, with cookie cutter treatment plans without an understanding of who and what I am. There were some psychiatrists who didn't want to deal with me, which was fine. And there were others who were intrigued by me. Even Myers Clinic, they even tried to ask me to come so they can sponsor me, so they can watch me for a little bit. I'm like, I'm not laughing at it. This is my genealogy. Most people of African diaspora culture, they can't trace back their genealogy or their spirituality. So when you go to a doctor, what's the first thing they ask? Your family history, right? Your family history. What? They ask you about your family history because they would like to know if anyone in your family has the same type of issues or presenting issues that you're having, right? So that means that they understand innately that our ancestors are in our bodies, are in our DNA, they're in our mind and their spirit, but they don't want to deal with that when they're trying to give us any treatment. They just want to talk about the body and the mind, right? So when you're thinking about a person with mental illness, especially people of diaspora who can't trace themselves back, they don't even know. They may not even know second generation. And it's not just by diaspora. There's a lot of different cultures. We don't know where we came from. We don't know our heritage, right? But when I did this exercise at school, this was my final project. And I had to ask my parents, ask my grandmother, and I found out that we're full of mumbos and hungas. And mumbos and hungas are spiritual leaders in the Haitian community. And in the Haitian community, we don't go see a doctor. You go see your priest, your Catholic priest, your Protestant priest. And if it's something serious that you don't want nobody to know about, you're gonna go see your mumbo and your hunga. But what people don't really understand from my culture is that, or from the West, understand my culture, is that voodoo was vilified so much that it was outlawed It just became a spiritual religion just recently in 2006. So you're talking about a culture who hides their essence out of fear. So I'm sorry, I kind of lost where I was talking about. So I had to journey with them. And during this low period of the last time I was in the hospital, I met a therapist who was immigrant from China, and she was the one who started asking me questions. Where are you from? Who are your people? What is your native religion? And I know where she was going with this, but I was so scared of voodoo, I could not even have this conversation. I was brought up to think that voodoo was dark. It was evil, and it was something I did not want to explore. And I almost got upset at my therapist, who I still see, for even asking those questions. But I knew it was something I had to explore, but I didn't know where to start. My parents were not following this culture. They grew up Catholic, and to talk about voodoo was almost like taboo, because they grew up in a time talking about it, you can get killed. Papa Doc didn't play, Baby Doc didn't play with that. And those were the dictators or the people who my parents grew up under. So this is not something that was talked about. I like how Kate Ramsey, a research professor from the University of Miami, states, no other religion, way of life has been subject to more misrepresentation from outsiders over the past 2 centuries than voodoo. It should be noted that many Haitians hold both Haitian voodoo and Western understanding of self, and may experience distress trying to integrate the two. Voodoo is so vilified by the country's colonizers that voodoo is viewed as people being crazy too, you know? If you ever to look at a ceremony, and I'm not talking about in the movie, if you ever are blessed to participate in any Ifa or Santeria or voodoo ceremony, you'll see the first thing that they have is a hole in the middle, because there's an understanding of esoteric reasoning of self, as above, so below. And the spirit comes down from the podium in the middle. And the ceremony actually is your body. So the podium, the pole in the middle, is actually our spinal cord. So when your third eye opens up, there's a secretion that comes through in your cranial, and it goes down your spine. And this is why the music is so important, because as you open up your spine, liquid is flowing. So all the gyration is actually part of your kundalini to rise it up. So that's why it's so important. But these are things that are not studied or talked about. This is why it was so important that community would come together and have these ceremonies, because they needed to hear something from the cosmos. They needed to hear something from deep within, that God that's in them, to kind of tell them how to deal with things. This was their time to get connected to the spirit. But how are you going to help anyone from a different culture? The K-CREP program doesn't talk about anything like this. Counseling education programs focus on treating the illness, including substance and mental disorders, solely on the neurological, physical perspective. While this may be effective temporarily, the risk of relapse is inevitable, right? How many people are going in and out constantly? Constantly. You would think, I mean, if you were to buy a car, or if you bought anything and it keeps breaking, what you're gonna do? You're gonna return it, or you're gonna try something different. It's almost like, why we keep doing the same thing over and over if it's not working? The money, yep, the money. The mental health professionals of the West are not trained on how to deal or even taught to acknowledge the existence of psychic phenomena or the spiritual world. In fact, psychic abilities like gifts that I had are belittled, viled, wronged, and viewed as it needs to be fixed. It's weird. We tell our kids you're perfect, you're no, not perfect, but you didn't, what was the question? Sorry, wait. You're not a bad child. You just make bad decisions. That's the thing that they talk about with kids. But when we talk about mental health, it's something wrong with you and it needs to be fixed. It's just weird. So when energies from the spiritual world are trying to merge with a person and assimilate with someone from the West and culture, the individual is completely unequipped to integrate. And they look as if they're going crazy, right? So without a proper teacher, without someone who's willing to, like Bernie Brown say, go into the hole with them and really feel them, to have empathy, and empathy, that means you're talking about someone's spirit, to feel someone, to understand someone. It's important when we're working with people. And I was lost. I had no place to turn. My therapist keeps asking me the same question over and over, you know, about your culture and about your native religion. I'm like, I don't know, girl. I don't know what to tell you. I'm Christianity, Catholic. And she's like, are you sure? And, you know, because I was that scared. Until one day, my very best friend, she asked me to come to a dafa. And she was being called to Ifa, which is an African religion, and dafa is like a divination. And I went with her, and Ifa resonated with me. Ifa was teaching me about my personality, my ori, which Carl Jung would call, archetypes. So Carl Jung would call it your archetype, your major archetype. So your ori, they would have different orishas that would characterize your character, your main character. And I learned how to flow with people. I learned how to understand people. I learned how to, because of my ori, I understood why some people rub me the wrong way and why some people I just connect with. And every time I had my dafa, it came up. I was already initiated and I needed to honor my ancestors. Oh God, here we go again with this voodoo. And I'm like, but this time I'm feeling more comfortable because Ifa teaches more about the natural elements. There's an orisha for each of the elements. And I felt comfortable. So Ifa brought me to voodoo. And I was at peace. I finally stopped feeling separated. Because I would wake up in the morning and my computer was on and there was a whole letter. And I don't remember writing the letter. I would send emails to people about things that they need to do. And they're like, oh my God, thank you so much, Mija. You just, oh, thank you. And I'm like, what are you talking about, girl? She was like, the email you sent. I was so fractured. But coming back to my heritage and understanding voodoo, now I understand it from a cosmic perspective. And finally, I can say I was integrated. I understood the energies that would come through. And even looking at pictures of myself sometimes, I would see when I saw different energies. And I understand that as a healer, working with the cosmos is not for that person, it's for the community. I'm a healer, and being a healer is first to understand that you're one with the cosmos and the universe, and that you're here to help and serve, always to serve. You always put others first before yourself. And that's something that most people don't really understand about the voodoo culture, Ifa, or any other African diaspora religion or spiritual way of life. So let's talk about discussion and application. So a lot of things that I found that helped me and helped other people, a lot of my clients, both my spiritual coaching clients and both my clinical clients now. Rituals are very important. The rituals that we would start off with is, oh my gosh, I forgot. I want to read this. I'm sorry. Can I read this real quick? I want to read about Haiti and why sometimes people have a hard time, because a lot of Haitians are viewed with mental disorders. So this is a quote from Nobles. Beyond the personal trauma-related disorders, the impact of the historical trauma on Haitian people has been analyzed. For instance, according to Benin, influence of the Catholic Church in the voodoo is evidenced by the continuous historical trauma. This is largely because voodoo was outlawed in 1934 and seen as barbaric by colonizers, and voodoo's practitioners had to adapt by adding aspects of Catholicism, Catholicism, in order to worship. Furthermore, this continued stigma around voodoo in Haiti can be understood as internalized bigotry that is rooted in historical trauma. Specifically, some Haitian people struggle to integrate the African-centered spirituality and liberation with history of the Western philosophy and religions that leading to the crisis of the cultural identity. The crisis of cultural identity is conceptualized to contribute to the political unrest, which in turn contributes to community violence. This is not just a Haitian issue. I would even say this is anyone who has been colonized. Internalized bigotry rooted by historical trauma. Think about that the next time someone comes in, that internal grappling could be the distortion that they're fighting. So, I'm sorry, back to rituals. Rituals are very helpful. So the first one is the cleansing. So if you ever went to any type of shamanic or Reiki or any type of crystal shop, first thing someone's trying to do is, let me smudge you. Can I clean you? Can I smudge you? That's cleansing. Can I smudge you? You know, that's the cleansing. Or a bath. Tantra. Tantra is very about cleansing in the bathing. The next step is the acceptance. Finding out who walks with you and what is your specific calling, or who's your guardian angel. Who you walk with? Who said, hey, I'll take that one. I'll be her. I'll watch over her throughout her soul's life. Okay. And then there's the initiation. This is when you find your community, find your tribe, and they accept you. It doesn't have to be formal. I feel like I had an initiation here. I'm like, oh my God, I was texting my husband. I was like, I think I'm going to be home, you know? And then after that is the marriage and integration. It's the merger. Having these steps and being professional helpers is sometimes it's important. Sometimes people are coming to you to say to them they're okay, right? They're looking for that validation. So also know that as a professional helper, you're that person's spiritual guide, because we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. So they're looking for validation. And if we're just stuck on these theories and these rigid ways, we may not be able to help them. So, and then there's the work. This is the fun part. And I love how everyone's talking about peer group over here. I text a couple of people in Chicago. I was like, hey, have you guys ever heard of peer groups? I don't think we have that many peer groups in the Chicagoland area. So the fact that you guys have that, that's great. That's helping both the person who's being serviced and the person who's giving the peer who's giving the service. So that's a great reward. Might have to think about doing something like that in the Chicagoland area. And then The clearing is constant. So the ritual of doing clearing, some people do moon, full moon, or new moon. So they constantly are letting go of things that no longer serve them. Thoughts, ideas, journaling, that helps. That's a clearing. So taking sacred ritual approach to mental illness rather than regarding the person as a pathological case gives the person who is deemed as mentally ill from the West and the community at large opportunity to begin to looking at from a vantage point that something is wrong. Where are we at time? Okay. So I want to show you, there's a lot of other things that I could talk about like, for example, the lack of training, you know, there's a lot of unethical treatment that can occur because of that, and which we all know, we've been all talking about it, but I want to share with you the video. If you can share that video, that'd be the main thing. And then I want to close out with one other idea. In this video, there's a part of a wheel, and I just kind of want you guys to kind of look at that too.
And what is soul ascending all about? There are many different religions out there, too many even to list. So let's just list a few. Envision spokes of an old wagon wheel with each religion represented by a spoke. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Primal Indigenous, Yoruba African tradition, and diasporic spiritualism. The center is a circle holding all the spokes together, is God, the divine source energy. All of these religion, way of life, have the same purpose and lead to the same center. Religions provide a connection and purpose for its believers. When a believer starts their journey on any one of these spokes, they genuinely believe that this path is the only true way to God, the divine. For many, they forever stay close to the outside of the wheel. Their views are limited and their journey is segmented. Their connection with the divine and other people of different religions and ways of life lacks depth. At some point in the journey, the believer will feel a calling, an unction, a pulling to learn more about their religion and other people's ways of life. As they start to study and go down the spoke and journey, they begin to see the close similarities of different religions to their way of life. For some, full connection occurs with the divine, and you understand who you truly are and what's your purpose. At this point, you haven't arrived, but your view of all things is from the center's point of view. You understand your purpose and help people of all walks of life, religions, and their journey to gain knowledge of the center point of view. This was my journey and the journey of many others who have completed their ascension. I am a helper, a guide, a teacher, a master, with a high order overview about connecting with the divine. My purpose is about expanding and reflecting the divine in all that we do. I help people who find themselves when they start questioning things about life or are wanting more out of life and they are not sure how to go about getting it. I don't know all the answers because everything is always ever expanding and reflecting the infinite. I work with the individual on a plan designed by your true self, your higher self. Everyone's path and the journey is different. From the center, I can help you to achieve your life's purpose and connect with your true nature. And this nature, our true nature, is always ever expanding. Let me be your guide to your soul ascension. Contact me at mpb@thesoulascending.com.
So in the Americas, Ifa, Orisha, Voodoo, Luas, these religion practices survived forced removal from Africa continent. The enslavement of its followers, and centuries of marginalization. Today, social institutional oppression continues to limit the degree to which Voodoo, Ifa, and other diaspora religions hold legitimacy as independent and viable epistemologies. The healing practice of these traditions deserve critical scholar attention alongside with other Western healing systems such as Buddhist mindfulness, Ayurveda, Reiki, yoga, which have over time gained a widespread in the Western academic industry. So that's me in a nutshell. That's the information I wanted to share. Do you guys have any questions, comments? Thank you. Thank you.
Can we extend it another hour?
I just think that having these conversations, having these type of events, having people to share their stories is the beginning. So I'm like I said, I am ecstatic that I found you guys. And I definitely think that after this weekend, I hope you guys have a different understanding of your patients and how we can all work together. Yeah.
Did you say that you're working on a documentary?
Yeah, so there's some people, there's a church in Chicago called called The Spirit. It's called The Spirit, Chicago, The Spirit. You can find their website. And they heard about me and they're asking me to kind of talk about this kind of stuff and how it's necessary. You know, every religion started off with somebody who had a psychosis. I don't think there's any religion that didn't start off with somebody who had some type of awakening in psychosis. So that's what they're talking about. Yeah, but no, not me. I'm not doing that.
I was wondering if you could share a bit more about how you use the categories of diversity as representing assumptions about how a person categorizes themselves and how we assist someone trying to break free of those categories that have been kind of conditioned in their own psyches.
Yeah, okay, let's go to that page.
Yeah.
So when you ask a person who are they're usually going to talk about their age,
Yeah.
their generational status, disability. They identify this, right? This is how the person identifies.
We check the boxes only.
We check the boxes all, and that's because they want to put us in categories, right? And so we identify with it. I don't know if saying it's bad. I don't think it's bad. What I think is something that we should be aware of is that the way we collect data for it, or the way that we categorize people because of this, we need to make sure that we understand that we're exploring this when we're doing treatment plans. You know, someone who is trying to explore their sexuality, right? And you're only giving them 2 boxes, right? That's not background. That's their core belief. They're sitting here struggling. They're trying to figure out where they are. You know, so that's why I'm ecstatic. I know some people in my generation, they're like, what's this thing about fluidity? I think it's great. Let them be. Let them explore. You know, we don't have to put them in boxes. But if you look at all of these, we identify with somewhere in this box. You know, did I answer your question?
Yeah, what I'm thinking about is like naming it, that this is a thing, right? That we are conditioned and led to believe that this is how we have to categorize ourselves, and what if there's a different way?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just,
Yeah. And that'd be like into this not concrete, but more very fluid. Yeah. Spiritual, you know?
it's almost like having the courage to enter the little space with the person. It takes almost courage on our own part to journey with that person. You really have no idea what's going to come out of their mouth.
Absolutely true. And be okay with whatever they say, you know?
And then work through maybe the somatic reaction too, like maybe get a little sweaty, maybe a little like,
And they may see themselves different and you'll see yourself different because you're doing the journey with them, right? But being vulnerable is necessary, right? Being vulnerable is necessary, right? Like Bernie, I don't know. Have you ever seen that Bernie cartoon? Someone, let me see if I can find it.
Anybody else has any questions? Any other questions? Wi-Fi Matt? Bernie Brown has this video of someone who's saying that they don't feel well, and the person's like, oh wow, that's terrible, but the other person walks in with them. There we go. So it's required, right?
Oh, yeah.
But this is, you want to see it? Okay, okay, okay.
One of the things while you're doing that up that you touch on is the disturbance that, you know, we do in the world, when we cauterize spirituality and the variety of spirituality.
Right.
Black and white, one another. And the fact that you're afraid to connect your own spirituality and you were told it to move. And you were told that for good reason, because it's dangerous. And then you had a lot of courage and really to push it up here.
Well, in the 2004 edition of the ethics booklet for counselors, it says that you shouldn't talk about your spirituality, but it's not it's not that you're trying to enforce it. It's about just exploring it. Similar to how my therapist did. She's like, well, you know, I just came back from home and I was hanging out with my grandma and we were doing this and we were talking about bodhisattvas. So I wonder, you know, she just kind of shared her story, and then she kind of asked me some questions for me to explore. But I think people are so scared of even talking about it, they miss out on the opportunity of exploring a different category, you know, or not a category at all, just being fluid for the person. So did you guys see this? Okay.
I just was curious about this. It kept coming up for me because I was seeing like the religions being named, and you know, the major ones. My question is just because I want to pose it like a question. What do you say? Do you think there should be a distinction when we talk about this, especially when we're talking about an altered experience, which usually has to do with a direct experience of the spiritual? Like very direct. It's not about the text in that moment. It's about this direct experience. It's the thing with the dance thing, that we're connecting with the community, right? So my question is, because in my mind, there's a distinction between religion, of the religions listed, and spirituality, because the religions are patriarchal. They're usually, a lot of them, you know, have come to be popular by force, versus spirituality, like only tradition. That's interesting. Every patriarchal religion has a mystical tradition, like Sufism, Kabbalah, Gnosticism. So my question is, do you think there should be a distinction made rather than list of patriarchal religions? And I know not all of them there are. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Okay. So, and you already answered your question.
Oh,
So originally, when these religions were created, they were very matriarchal.
yeah.
When you think of, but you have to study it through mysticism. So like Islam, Sufism, and when you study Sufism, you realize, oh wait, hold on, Muhammad, like they did that for a reason. So it's almost like, here's the best way for me to explain it, and I can have my kids. When they're young, what do we tell our kids? Don't play with fire. Fire is bad, right? It's because there is no apparatus yet for them to handle that fire. So religion is very strict and concrete for someone new to enter, so they can learn all of these, thou shalt not, I do that, I do that. But the more that you walk down into it, then you explore to Sufism and Mysticism. It's just, I think what happens is we're so stuck over here in that part of the wheel, like that wheel thing, that we never explore and start going down even further, you know, to what it is, you know? And when you get down into that mystical part, every religion has a mystical part. That's when you realize that we're all one, and it's more matriarchal. Did I answer your question? Yeah, okay. So to be honest, when I did that video, when we made that video, I still was fighting with you, so I couldn't even list it, you know, at that time and stuff like that. But you know, it's a process, right? It's a process. It's walking into those slopes. Whatever you started off with, just keep walking into it. That's what I tell people. Just keep walking into it. And people call it the spirituality versus religion. And that's okay too. It's just saying I'm having a spiritual experience because you're understanding that divine in a whole different way. And it's individual, it's just for you, right? And then when you explore it even more, then you're like, oh, I got to share everything with everyone, right?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's just the distinctions, there's more distinctions on the outside of that school, like you were saying, but some of those distinctions are quite dangerous.
They are.
Problematic,
They are.
and say a lot of bad things about things we accept that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that is always glaring in my mind with religion.
It's such a, I mean, that's where words start, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody's thinking, my way is the only way.
Yeah.
This is the right way. You're wrong. That's judgment. And that's very cheap for your,
Yes.
right? But the more you walk this,
Forget all that.
oh, you know, the biggest thing for me when I learned was most religions start with the idea that the divine is feminine.
Right, yeah, that's.
But then, you know, they changed it, you know,
Yeah.
whatever reason.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think there's a reason they say father time and mother nature.
Even when you read like, I don't know, but most people understand Christianity, even when you read like, even when you read the Bible and you start understanding, the one who wrote the Bible actually got everything from Egypt. And Egypt is very matriarchal. But even like things like the Our Father was called top to the divine. Feminine. So it's just taking the time to kind of study that, and I don't want to turn it into a religion class, but I just, that's what I.
I did, is that what you said? I did? Okay. But thank you, yes.
I live in Brazil
Mhm.
and channeling orishas is very common in a few different types of religion. Do you channel? And if so, could you tell us if you're an audience for it?
Yeah, I had told earlier, I called it Akashic because it was more accepted to say Akashic.
Uh-huh.
But,
So, like, for example, I took my hair down because I don't walk around with my hair out because they are, if you were to look at a tree and your feet become like a tree. Think of your toe as root, and you start to connect with everyone, and your hair does the same thing. And then you become a podium and you look in your crown, but when it comes through. When you're ready to channel. Okay, but yeah,
Like in Brazil, they're bringing in the spirit of that God in them, and then they take on the personality. You know, I don't get
no, not now.
it.
It's just, yeah, no,
Okay,
it's something that you have to be also conscious, so I never channel without having my assistants with me. I have two assistants all the time because it could be, you know, like, I'm feeling someone right now has, you know, someone has a wound energy, right? Do I wanna have a wound come in through and I'm gonna start telling people in through? I don't know if people
no,
can
I wouldn't
right?
expect you to
Yeah,
channel like
right,
that, but-
yeah, no, I'm just saying, but yeah, I do that, and I've been doing it since I was a child, I didn't know. That's why they call me DID. Yeah. Yeah. That's what, most people who are diagnosed with DID or bipolar may not be able to channel. They just don't know how to, because nobody talks.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Oh, do you guys want to watch that? I don't know if you want to watch it. You want to play that?
So what is empathy and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy
Recognizing,
is feeling with people.
dealing with people.
And
That's
to
what
me, I
Shelley
always think
does.
of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, you know, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. I had it, yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Right? So you're not to share, you know, do not, I mean, but sometimes we have to, right? We gotta connect, right? Thank you so much for choosing to come listen. Oh, Ashe, who's the Ashe? All right. Or are you Bobo? Yeah.
Actually, want to ask you.
Thank you for your help. I really appreciate you.
I'm happy to. Hopefully it went okay and everything good. Just 5.
Okay,
perfect. I just want to say,
I'm going barefoot my next time. Today I said I'm putting these on. I'm like, my toes need to be out of shoes. So you walk it, I love it, but here's my little.
Oh, okay, I definitely.
I have somebody both parts, but that one, I really like you. But
Well, how are you feeling? And I didn't even get to,
yeah, and oh my God, that night, that's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
You can make me want to come to Chicago.
What?
So, yeah. Are you staying till tomorrow?
No, I gotta go. I have to go. No, tomorrow morning. Early. Like, I'm not gonna even come here because I have to go, meet with the school superintendent. Something happened with my son. So I gotta, yeah. Just, but, you know, always need to talk to the school about, you know, so.
Mine's 30, but when he was 10, I was about to put it in the hospital, so I related to everything. I get why you related to mine. Like, oh my God, I want to know your story. Documentary.
Definitely, we'll talk. I'll definitely.
Oh, big time.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
All right.
Oh, good. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. That meant a lot, because I know you do a lot of speaking.
Unlike me, you have to do slides. I'm like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, appreciate it. And we'll connect. Okay, we'll definitely connect.
Okay.
I definitely, you know, I want to do more of this, you know?
We can write a chapter.
Yeah.
You got that.
Yeah. Yes, yes,
Even if your mentor writes one, hope that you write one as well.
yes, yes, yes,
Because
yes.
one of the things I've learned far too late,
Mhm.
was that we have to write.
Right, it's important.
We're so busy doing it,
Right.
which is important, obviously.
Mhm.
Because they don't put it on. Otherwise, other people write, they become the experts. on
Yeah.
Our stuff.
That's true. That is so true. You're right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You take care. I'll connect with you, I'll call you.
Great.
Half a day next time.
Oh, people were mesmerized.
So, well, that's, you can help me. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much.
Patient.
Yes, yes.
La 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 la.
About these old songs.
Cause I play the accordion, I play one accordion.
Like,
You have this very strong accordion tradition, and, we have this CD called IT Chevy. And it's a beautiful CD, and it's got like, and it's, what's that, compound?
Yeah.
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 And we also, yeah, so we play a lot of that stuff in our band. We play, creation stuff, I made up, T-Wazo. T-Wazo. Hey, I'm gonna pay my.
You just have hidden gems. You can
Yeah. My husband, and New Orleans
Yeah.
and Haiti have a really strong connection.
Yeah.
And the accordion, you know, we play traditional Cajun music and Zydeco music. And there's just a strong Creole.
Right, yeah.
Creole connection, and there's just such a powerful, and religion.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you said you were more, oh, I wanted to know, you mentioned tarot. Have you seen Alice Mead's book, The Ghetto Tarot?
No.
I will send you a link.
Thank you.
Bluetooth device is ready to pair. We didn't even end it.